Hey everyone, it's Josh, and today I'm coming to you with another installment of Surviving the Pavement, where Surviving the Pavement is where I talk about what it's like to live in the streets. As I've stated in past videos, there's been media stories about me and everything. I am a former homeless man, spent 10 years living in and out of the streets uh, until 2014 when I decided to finally get my high school diploma in my mid 30s and get into college. And I just graduated college a couple years ago with honors. So uh, that's my story. But today I'm going to be telling you a story from the streets. And this is a story of how it all could have gone bad for me, how I could have possibly ruined my life with one bad decision, and how I'm honestly really lucky that this didn't happen. Okay, so let's go back to 2014. I want to say this was in August or September of 2014 when this took place. I'm going to assume August. Yeah, it had to be August because I think the weather was still pretty warm and everything like that. Anyway, um, I'm panhandling in Fort Dodge, holding up a sign, cardboard sign saying "homeless, please help," something like that. A car rolls by me and says something slick to me. Now, normally I let that stuff go unless somebody keeps talking smack. But I wasn't in a great mood that day. I don't know what it was. I decided to say something back to this guy in this car. So he said something to me like, "Get a job, you bum," something like that. And I turned around and I told him, "Fuck you." All right. And didn't think much of it after that. But about an hour later, I'm doing this outside of a Target. I believe it was a Target or a Hy-Vee up there in Fort Dodge. And about an hour later, after about an hour of panhandling, I look up to my left and look into the driveway a little bit, and there's this carload of young guys that are staring intently at me. I'm just staring, not filming, not nothing, just staring. So I thought it was kind of weird, but I thought, maybe they're just sitting there waiting for someone to come out to the car and they're just staring at me for entertainment for a second, whatever. Well, I look over a half hour later and them guys are still sitting there. And another hour goes by, those guys are still sitting there. And again, it's still just looking right at me. So I figured out that this was the car that I had said "fuck you" to that had rolled by me earlier. So I'm a little tense about this because, I don't know where this is going, but I have a pretty good idea, right? So, because nobody's just going to sit there and watch you for hours if they have good intentions towards you, right? It would be different if they were filming, like for, to put me on YouTube or whatever, but that's not what they were doing. They were sitting there staring like they wanted a piece of me. So, okay, so where was I? Okay, so I get done panhandling that day, and I know that I have enough money for a motel for when I get back to Ames, right? So I want to be done with my day, but them guys are still sitting there staring. So I stayed out there panhandling for an extra hour when I didn't even really need to, because I was just hoping those guys would get bored and go away or whatever the case was. But they never did. Finally, I decided I got to go back to my car. Whatever happens, happens, right? I did this sort of weird zigzag routine back to my car to try to throw them off. And I get in my car, and I thought I had lost them. Now, across the street from this Hy-Vee is this like half abandoned mall in Fort Dodge, okay? And so that's where my car was parked. I was parked in this like half abandoned mall parking lot, which is huge, and there were very few people parked there because There's only like four. This is a huge mall, or not a huge mall, but it's a decent sized mall. But there's only like 3 or 4 stores actually operating in the mall. Anyway, get in my car, start up, pull out. When I pull out to the end of the driveway where it's time to turn onto the road, that car pulls up behind me out of nowhere. And so, okay, well, let's see where this is going. So, sure enough, I take a few turns and, they're definitely following me. Um, they kind of gave up after a while, and I was able to get back to Ames with no problems. Now, this was around the time that I was starting to study for my high school diploma. This was the time where I decided, man, I've got to change my life. I can't be a street person forever. I got to do something. So I was enrolled in high school diploma classes here at the DMAC in Ames. And I was studying almost nightly to get my diploma. I would panhandle for motel rooms during the day, and then I would hit the motel rooms at night. And then I would spend most of my evening in the motel rooms studying, teaching myself math concepts and so on, so that I could gain enough knowledge to eventually get my high school diploma and get into Iowa State. So that's what I was doing at the time. So for the next few days, that's kind of what I did. I just went back to studying and kind of, just doing my own thing. I kept thinking about these guys, though. I kept thinking about these guys because they were watching me for a long time. I know that they know what my plates are, and I know that you can get a lot of information about somebody off their plates. And I know some of you might think only government can access your information off your license plates. Not true. Anybody who really wants to access information about you can. So I'm thinking about these guys. And if you can get information about somebody off their plates, you can get information about their families, the whole thing. So I'm thinking about these guys a lot because I'm thinking they spent nearly 4 hours just staring at me. And they have my plates. To me, that seems like they're determined to create bad intentions. And then I started thinking about like my mom back in Milwaukee. I'm thinking like, if these people get information about me off my plates, they might be able to figure out who my mom is, and something bad could happen to her. I don't know. You got to understand that they sat there and stared at me for 4 straight hours, waiting for me to leave so they could do God knows what. So all of this is running through my mind. But I keep telling them, so I'm starting to think I should go back up there and I should find these guys and I should fight it out with them. And there was 5 of them and 1 of me. So, I don't have really good chances in that situation because it's kind of hard to beat five grown men, even if they are young men. But I'm going back and forth in my head about this. I'm like, if I do go back up there and I hurt these guys, I could get charged with a felony, blah, blah, blah. I could throw away everything I'm working for as far as trying to get into Iowa State. But the other side of me is saying, no, you got to go up there. You got to find these guys. You got to see if you can't engage them into a fight. And my thinking was that even if I lose the fight, at least they've gotten whatever vengeance on me that they wanted to get. So they didn't need to look up my plates and look up my information and find out who my family is and all of that, right? So I'm thinking, okay, but I'm going back and forth about this, right? Now, I'm getting closer to the time where I'm actually going to take my diploma test. And finally, I decide to go back up to Fort Dodge. This is like a week later. And I go back up to Fort Dodge to panhandle. Did not need to panhandle on this day. The whole reason I went back up to Fort Dodge to panhandle was so that I could draw these guys out. I was hoping that they would see me again and that they would stalk me again so that I could lead them out to some secluded area and we could fight it out. I remember I bought like a big baseball bat, or I bought the club. Do you remember the club thing that they used to put on cars? They were still selling those in 2014. It was either a baseball bat or the club. But let's just assume it was a baseball bat, right? So I had a big baseball bat with me. And my plan was, again, let these guys roll up on me again, panhandle for a little bit, allow them to follow me when I get back in my car until we get somewhere where people can't see us, and then violence will ensue. So, and it's me against five of them, so I was just going to bum rush them and do what I could with that baseball bat before they all swarmed me. So, I do go back up to Fort Dodge with that intention. And I panhandle that day, and I don't see them guys. And I never saw them guys again. But I waited all day for them. You know, I panhandled a whole day that I didn't even need to panhandle because I was trying to draw these guys out so that we could have our little battle or whatever we were going to do. Because I was worried about them, But I never saw these guys again. And, that's something I can thank God for because, like I said, at that time, I was studying to get my high school diploma, hoping to get into Iowa State University, which I did about a month later. About a month and a half later, I studied to take my diploma test, passed with flying colors. Iowa State accepts me like a month after that. But had I gone back up there, which I did, but had I run into them guys and had my plan work to draw them out, to allow them to follow me somewhere where we could just fight this out with a baseball bat, that could have been bad for me in so many ways. First off, it was one man against five dudes. So even with a baseball bat, that's not very good odds. I could have gotten really hurt. But if I would have smashed them up, I could have been charged with a really bad felony. And even if the charges were dropped because it was five of them against one of me, which they probably would have been because it was five of them against one of me, right? But the fact that the charges would even come up in the first place could have ruined my chances to get into Iowa State, and I would have never been able to get into college. So I guess I dodged a bullet there because I went up there looking for, trouble. And thank God it didn't find me. God was looking out for me. I don't know what was going on, but I never saw them guys again. Now, I want to make something clear. I did not go back up there because I wanted beef with these guys. I went back up there because they watched me for hours, and they knew my license plates. You put those two things together, and a lot of creepy thoughts start running through your head. I didn't know if they were going to try to hunt me down through that information. I mean, this isn't just some random thing where you say F you back to a guy and you fight on the spot. These guys sat there and stared at me for hours like a bunch of stalkers. And they got my plates. I don't know what they can do with that information. You know what I mean? So I'm thinking whatever's going to happen, in order to protect myself and to protect potentially my family, I better go back up there and fight it out with these guys. And let them get whatever revenge they're going to get on me, or attempt whatever revenge they're going to attempt at me at least, and get that whole thing over with. So that's what I was thinking. I wasn't going back up there to be, Billy Badass, to prove a point like I'm the toughest guy on earth and whatever. Although I will admit that part of me was driven by that because, as somebody who's from the streets, I didn't take kindly to disrespect, especially back then. But mostly I thought it was something I had to do to protect myself and my family. Because anybody that'll watch you for 4 or 5 straight hours and get your plates, seems to me like that's somebody who's really determined to go out of their way to do bad things to you, right? So that was my thinking in making the admittedly bad decision to go back up to Fort Dodge to try to draw these people out. But I never saw them, and if they saw me, they didn't lead on that they saw me. I never got followed because I was watching for that. and nothing ever happened with that. So that's my story about how everything I was working for to get in my high school diploma and to get into college could have all been taken away from me, you know, because of, just things that happen on a regular basis in the streets. Um, Now, you asked me if I regret going up there. I don't know, man. On one hand, I think I made the wrong decision to go back up there. But on the other hand, again, these guys stared at me for 4 hours and they got my plates. Somebody who does that is somebody who's willing to hunt you down, right? So I'm thinking I got to go back up there and get all this over with. And if something would have happened, like I said, even though I had a baseball bat, charges would have been filed against me, but the charges would have been dropped because it's me against 5 other dudes. However, it still would have been a public thing, and I would have had to explain to the school that I have charges and all that. And Iowa State could have very well reversed their decision to let me into the school. So that's one of my stories about a time where it could have all been bad for me. A time where everything I was working for to get myself into a better situation could have been gone with just one swing of a baseball bat, or just if I had run into those guys again, everything I was working for could have been gone or at least severely set back. So that's my story for the day. More stories to come. If you appreciate my work, I'm going to link my Venmo down below. And if you feel like inspired by some of my stories, let me know through my Venmo. I'd sure appreciate it. Thank you.